Good morning, everybody. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. It's my pleasure to start the opening of this third version of the International Water Summit, which has been organized by Masdar for the third year. It's becoming an even more impressive meeting by the year, actually. As I said, the organization, as I said last year, actually, when I stood over here, the organization of this summit shows the commitment of Abu Dhabi and its public institutions to the water development on the global level. And I really hope that this summit would be taken as an opportunity for Abu Dhabi to take its well-deserved position, actually, on the global scene of water development and extension of service to the poor and achievement of the Millennium Development Goals and the upcoming Sustainable Development Goals, as it has taken its position in the global energy scene, and specifically a renewable energy scene through organizations like Masdar and the hosting of IRENA. I know Abu Dhabi really deserves such a high-level position, and I hope that the opportunity will not be missed, really. Without saying that much more, I would like to introduce the esteemed speakers of this opening ceremony. The first speaker who will give the official, actually, opening speech is Dr. Han Seung Soo, who is the former Prime Minister of South Korea. And after leaving the prime ministership, Dr. Han took very eminent positions, actually, through the UN system, where he is serving as the UN Secretary General's Special Envoy on Disaster Risk Reduction in Water. And since 2007, he's been serving also as a member of the UN Secretary General Advisory Board on Water and Sanitation, or UNSGAB. And since last year, he's the vice chair of the Zayed Future Energy Prize jury as well. So, Dr. Han, the floor is yours. And please welcome me, or help me in welcoming Dr. Han.
Excellencies, distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, I am very pleased to return once again to Abu Dhabi to speak to you at this year's International Water Summit. I would like to take this opportunity to thank the host, Masdar, for organizing this summit. I have no doubt that this summit will continue to foster innovation, best practice, and collaboration to offer tangible solutions to the pressing issue of water scarcity. As we are here to deliberate on water, I was extremely happy to see Abu Dhabi in rain yesterday. Ladies and gentlemen, it was with the commitment and forward thinking of the founding father of the United Arab Emirates, His Highness Sheikh Zayed bin Sultan Al Nahyan, the first president of UAE, that Abu Dhabi began its transformation into a green city. As you have witnessed, the city has successfully been transformed into a land of trees and green fields. Nevertheless, there are tremendous challenges in making UAE more climate change resilient and environmentally sustainable. UAE is regarded as one of the driest countries in the world, with renewable water resources far below the United Nations water scarcity threshold, which is 1,000 cubic meter per capita per annum. The UAE's is 83 cubic meter per capita per annum. Such demand has been met through the exploitation of groundwater resources and desalinated water. The total water consumption exceeds 24 times of the natural recharge capacity, whereas groundwater supply has fallen by 18% since 2003. To make matters worse, an unceasing population growth and enlarged economic size has driven an increase of solid waste discharge at over 15% per annum since 2004. In order to cope with such formidable water shortage challenge, UAE has devoted itself to developing three major water supply methods. One, groundwater supply with 65%, two, desalinated water with 29%, and three, recycled water, 6%. Among them, desalinated water production, energy-intensive process increased by approximately 150% in the last 10 years, and this contributes to the salinity of the Arabian Gulf, posing both an environmental hazard and risk. Ladies and gentlemen, Abu Dhabi, along with the majority of major cities around the world, will continue to grow. More than half of the world's 7 billion live in urban areas, as 5 million city residents increase every single month. On the basis of the business as usual scenario, urbanization will reach around 60% by 2030 and 70% by 2050. A high urbanization rate triggers more consumption and concentration of resources for those living in urban areas, that is water, food, and energy. The Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations informs that 1.8 billion people will be living under the water scarcity by 2025. A majority of them will live in less developed countries. Further, according to the recent IPCC report, the mean average temperature of the world in the 21st century will rise to 3.7 degrees Celsius, and the sea level will rise up to 63 centimeters on average. An increase of precipitation intensity and precipitation imbalance will also be observed, and the intensity and frequency of water-related disasters, such as typhoons, heavy storms, will increase. In addition, extreme climate phenomena, that is, heat waves, droughts, wildfires, will decimate large areas of the world. In the context of the water, food, energy, climate nexus, there also lies complex challenge. In terms of water and food, the rise of income level has entailed a change in diet to increase the proportion of meat, and its demand is projected to rise by 50% by 2050. More food means a tremendous burden on water resources, which calls for wise solutions to address the linkage between water and food. The nexus between water and energy is worth paying more attention to, because these two elements are inseparable and are interconnected. For instance, the production of drinkable water needs energy for treatment process and pumping, whereas the production of energy requires, that is, electricity through nuclear power plants, requires a large amount of water to cool the fission process. It is therefore imperative to recognize the intricate linkage between water, energy, and therefore we cannot afford to let a shortage of one source pose a serious threat to the other. It is also noteworthy that the impacts of climate change on freshwater systems and management are primarily attributed to increasing temperature, sea level rise, and precipitation variability. Climate change has a detrimental impact on the function and operation of water infrastructure and water management practices. Population growth, urbanization, and economic growth continue to culminate in an increase of water demand for various purposes, including domestic, industrial, agricultural, and environmental purposes. Current water management practices are inappropriate to decrease negative impact of climate change on water supply, food, health, energy, and aquatic ecosystems. New types of water management practices should be established in order to adapt to the challenge of the climate change. Ladies and gentlemen, I applaud UAE's effort in streamlining numerous ongoing scattered efforts within the UAE into a consolidated national strategy and look forward to hearing success stories in the near future. I look very much forward to a productive discussion here today and sincerely hope that the outcome of this International Water Summit will provide us with a blueprint towards improved water resources management for sustainable development in the Middle East and beyond. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Dr. Han, for this speech. I'd like to introduce now the first keynote presenter, Her Excellency Razan Khalifa Al Mubarak, the Secretary General of the Environment Agency Abu Dhabi, which is the regulatory agency for environment and which led the development of the water strategy of Abu Dhabi last year. Her Excellency will present on ensuring a sustainable water future for the arid regions. Excellency, the floor is yours, please.
Well, I have to say my job is a lot easier now that after your wonderful introduction that really set the context to some of the challenges that we face here. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. It's an immense, gives me immense pleasure to welcome you all to the 3rd International Water Summit. In my opening remarks, I'd like to focus on a number of challenges, a number of trends that will impact water security in our region. And really, it is time to ask ourselves if the business as usual model of managing our water resources will suffice, if it will help us and enable us meet the challenges both currently and in the future. Regionally and in many areas around the globe, there are a number of conflicting trends. The first one is that of population growth and dwindling freshwater reserves. As we all know, our population in this region is expanding exponentially. According to the United Nations Development Programme, this region is foreseen to almost double its population from its current 350 million to around 600 in 2050. This population increase will not only directly impact water consumption, but also indirectly impact water consumption with respect to its demand on goods, services, and food. And against this trend of surging demand, the region's freshwaters are declining rapidly. In Abu Dhabi, for example, our aquifers are declining at an unsustainable rate due to high extraction rates. But the point to make here that even at these rates of extremely high extraction patterns, we're still not able to meet the current demands. To fill the gap, the UAE and really the nations also bordering the Arabian Gulf have looked at and have invested heavily in desalination. In fact, those countries account for 60% of all global capacity when it comes to desalination. I'm sure you'll all agree with me, this is a staggering sum. But desalination is not all good news. Desalination, as you all know, is energy intensive, and at such a large and growing dependence on desal, it has contributed to a surge in energy domestic use. Another trend that I'd like to point out is our high per capita consumption patterns, despite the substantial costs of water production. So, ladies and gentlemen, given the current water scarcity in the Arab region, which will only be exacerbated by growing populations and dwindling groundwater reserves, business as usual is not a satisfactory response. What we need is business as unusual. Last year, we discussed the concept of having a water budget. At the heart of the water budget concept is the principle that we will define and determine a fixed volume of water that we can sustainably supply in the long term and develop ways to live within this predetermined amount. Unlike the business as usual model, we must not continue to meet increasing demand by increasing supply. Of course, it does not mean that our population and our economy cannot grow. It simply means that we must be more productive, more competitive, and more efficient in the way we use our water. And we must think carefully and debate about how we allocate our water. By developing a sophisticated system that recognizes scarcity, these systems will recognize, by allocating more water in one sector of the economy, we may need to reduce the allocation in another sector of the economy. Much like other decision-making models that account for scarcity in other aspects of governance, such as the development and the allocation of the financial budgets, for example. In Abu Dhabi, our per capita domestic water consumption is 3 times the world average. So by reducing our consumption to meet world average levels, we are able to almost triple our population without having to increase our supply. So, ladies and gentlemen, defining a scientifically determined water budget and agreeing to live within that will create the incentive, the motivation to be creative around the aspects of water efficiency and to be creative around the aspects of water reuse. This broad switch and mental switch from the continuous reliance on conventional desalination to greater efficiency and greater water reuse will have substantial benefits. It'll have substantial benefits in terms of health, in terms of environment, by the reduction of carbon dioxide emissions and other air pollutants. It will minimize damage to marine environments. It'll free up capital that could be redirected towards social programs and even commercial programs. And it will enable us, as a nation, to become more and more competitive as we compete in a resource-constrained world. But shifting to this business-as-usual model will not be necessarily as easy as I make it to sound. It will require substantial effort, it'll require substantial will from all key elements of our society. The Environment Agency of Abu Dhabi is making a conscious effort to reach out to local stakeholders, regional stakeholders, as well as international stakeholders, to build the necessary coalitions and to generate momentum around this concept and really broadly in terms of thought leadership around the water issues. And as part of our efforts, I'm very pleased to announce that the Environment Agency is awarding an annual research grant to further develop the water budget. We will be announcing the winners of the 2015 grant shortly. At the Environment Agency, we've also committed ourselves to use the water budget approach in the way we manage our groundwater, as well as the way we manage our forestry, two areas that the Environment Agency is directly responsible for. We've also engaged with several partners and governments. Under a government-to-government agreement between the United Arab Emirates and New Zealand, EAD commissioned a joint scientific research to study the optimum water requirement of crops and trees grown here in the UAE. Hasn't really happened before. Some of our early research indicates, for example, that we are overwatering the lulu tree by 3 times as much as it actually requires. We've also partnered with other stakeholders. We've partnered with the United States Geological Society to enhance our groundwater monitoring capabilities. We've partnered with the Department of Economy and the Research Triangle Institute in North Carolina to conduct an economic valuation of our groundwater. We've partnered with the Paris Sorbonne, Abu Dhabi, and the Judiciary Department in Abu Dhabi and the United Arab Emirates to assess the legal governance around water. And through our Abu Dhabi Global Environmental Data Initiative, we're assessing the impact of climate change on groundwater resources in the region and at the local level. Another pertinent trend that I'd like to conclude is actually also in the growth of our cities. Today, the level of urbanization is unprecedented. And as such, the role of how we build our cities, how we maintain our cities, how we live in our cities, will have a great impact on how we manage our resources. And with that, I'd like to take this opportunity to announce that Abu Dhabi will be hosting the EcoCity Conference in October of 2015 in our mission to progress around thought leadership in the areas of sustainable cities. We hope to see you all there. Thank you very much for your kind attention.
Thank you, Excellency, for this speech that went through like an overview of the real problems facing Abu Dhabi and the UAE, actually. The third speaker of this opening session that will give a keynote presentation as well is Her Excellency Engineer Fatima Al Shamsi, the Assistant Under-Secretary at the Ministry of Energy for Electricity, Clean Energy, and Water Desalination, and who will give a presentation on analyzing the challenges and opportunities of the water energy nexus, which is actually the trend now is to deal with this as one nexus rather than water alone and energy alone, although through integrated approaches. Excellency, the floor is yours.
First of all, I would like to thank the organizer for inviting me to speak on this subject, water energy nexus. One of the things that, if you notice, I'm looking after the electricity and clean energy and water desalination. In this region, we are mostly using desalinated water. One of our responsibility is to develop the UAE energy strategy and the UAE water strategy. And one of the challenges is that how to develop a strategy for water, separate strategy for water, and separate strategy for energy. In this region, while we are dependent on energy for our water production, we are depending on water for our generation. So going with some facts, and I think Dr. Han and Her Excellency Razan has spoke about some water and energy facts. We know that there is 750 million people with lack for access to fresh water, and we have the fact that we are using a huge amount of water in the world, 70% for agriculture and irrigation, and the domestic use is only 10%. On the other side, on the electricity side, we have 1.3 billion people with not having access or reliable access to electricity. Population is grown, and the demand for electricity and water is gonna increase. By 2035, the energy demand will increase to 35%. As an impact of this increase of 35% in energy, it will impact the water requirement to 85%. We know that using the service water, pumping the service water is using less energy of 30% compared to using the groundwater. And if we keep consuming the service water, also the energy required for future pumping will be more. In this region, we have more than 52% of desalinated water coming here in the Middle East. If we look to this map showing the water scarcity, we can see that our Middle East is either absolute scarcity or with scarcity of water. And in addition to the climate change and the weather change, the access for fresh water will be difficult in some countries, and it happened in India. Also, we are water is dependence, water production, water transport, water distribution is dependent on the electricity. Now, population is growing, and we need to meet the energy and water demand for future generation. The fact is, we need energy for water. We need the energy for water supply, for water generation, for desalination, for transporting, for distributing of the water. We need energy for irrigation also. We need energy for water distribution. But we also need water for energy. We need water for the primary production of energy. We need water for the cooling of power generation with different type of power generation. The question is, one of the things we are doing is that we need to develop, and in the energy part, we're talking about diversification of energy resources. And to diversify the energy resources, you need to know what is the consumption or the water requirement for different type of the energy. So the IEA in their outlook has prepared collected some data about the water requirement for primary energy production, and you can see the need for water. Also the water required for electricity production. Now we have a relation between the energy and the water. The relation is like it's a network rather than a nexus. It's a network. Whenever you manage to improve or looking for a solution for energy, you have to consider the water part of it. Shortage and supply of energy means shortage and supply of water, and same thing, shortage and supply of water will mean a shortage and supply of electricity. So what we need is to look into water and energy as integrated system. Now, and it's mostly in the whole world that there is a different management for water, planning and operation, and another management for the energy or the electricity part of it. What we need to do and the effective management of energy and water combined together. And we need to have an integrated approach to energy and water planning. We need to set the policies for water and energy. We cannot continue having a separate policy for water and separate policies and procedures for energy, because it is affected. While one of the basics while preparing any plan or strategy for energy or water, we are doing modeling. But what we need to do is that we need to have the water as an input to the energy strategy or the energy as an input to the water strategy. We need to have integrated energy and water modeling. Now, also the infrastructure. The development of the infrastructure for water and energy should be integrated. This will create synergy, especially that the infrastructure for water and energy is not like an infrastructure that will be used for 1-2 years. It's going to be used for decades. It's not like that bad, because already we have worked on this, and there is opportunity for energy and water nexus. If we can split the solution into system and standalone system and technologies. If we look into a system, we're talking here about our colleague on the World Future Energy Summit is talking about future energy solution to sustain the energy. And here we are talking about sustainability of water. Solution is to use the renewables with fossil fuel, decreasing the waste heat by using combined cycle for power generation or for desalination. And this is, I think, in this region, we are using this technology. Combined heat and power also. Solar power desalination and improving the efficiency of the solar, of the desalination plant. In Abu Dhabi, I think, as you are aware, Masdar is doing a project for solar power desalination. We can use renewable energy, efficient thermal generation, and when we say that any improvement in the efficiency of power generation This will improve the water consumption for electricity generation. Now, improving the efficiency of power generation plant will use same water for the same fuel, with the output will be better. So we are conserving the water use in this case. Plant optimization, equipment and technical solution. Efficient equipment and new development. Alternative cooling system. Now we are depending on water for cooling system, but there is dry cooling. Yes, it will take larger area, but it's one of the solutions for water use. Hybrid, using dry combination of dry and wet cooling. Technical solution for design optimization. And also we can use solar water pump instead of using electricity for pumping the water. The picture you see here, it's one of the projects that Ministry of Energy, in collaboration with Ministry of Environment, a project to showcase the using solar for pumping the water for farms. And this project has been in operation since last year. It's now 1 year. And we're looking to encourage the use of the solar for pumping the water in the farms, and the Ministry of Environment will promote this within the farmers. When we define water, we're always talking about fresh water, but we can use, or we can think, and research and development should go with different, defining the requirement in this region and develop about it. Today, or this year, is the year of creativity, and we have to think of different way to use water. So we can use treated water. We can think of using the seawater or brackish water for cooling instead of using desalinated water or fresh water for the cooling of power plant. Think of reuse of water, and we started, I think, everywhere. The use of treated water for agriculture, irrigation, landscape, it's famous now. But also we can use the treated water for cooling water as an alternative. We can use also non-potable water for fire protection, for toilet flushing, construction. For potable use, the reused water. One of the things that maybe I missed it is that I remember when we were talking about energy conservation and demand management, one of the first point to think about is AC, and we are consuming a lot of energy for the AC use, and one of the solutions is using district cooling, and district cooling is using water again, and the debate is that yes, we are conserving electricity, but we are using more water. So how to manage between them? Empower, the district cooling company in Dubai, will start a new project, sign an agreement with one of the international company for a pilot project, piloting a technology for district cooling using less water. And this kind of creativity to find a solution for the energy and water nexus is what we need to develop. I think by this is, I'm finishing my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much for this keynote, which talked especially about the desalination, which is a real gas guzzler, actually, and definitely more efficiency would help the whole region. So with this, we would like to close this, this session, and I would like to ask you to help me again to give a hand to the esteemed presenters. I'd like to now introduce the next panel discussion.